So welcome back to part 2 of Calcium Lime and SoilOptix. This is Tech Talks with Crop Care Consulting and Trevor Thornton, who's going to be walking us through this awesome topic on utilizing SoilOptix to help certainly with calcium and lime and other things that are going on in the field. If you're watching this and you haven't seen part 1, please stop, pause this, and certainly go back to part 1 to get sort of that pre-information as we jump into this here now. So I will pass it off to Trevor to take us through part 2 of this Tech Talk.
Thanks, Zach. Hi again, Trevor back again with another Tech Talk on calcium, lime, and SoilOptix. Being that the calcium and lime is such a large topic, in order to keep these sessions on the shorter side, we decided to do it in 2 parts. So if you're starting to watch right now on part 2, strongly suggest you just stop. Go find part 1 and watch that. It gives you a little bit better background, because we're not gonna waste any time. We're just gonna dive right in. So we start looking at weeds and nutrition and what's going on in the field. Weeds are a sign of different nutrient balances, as we referred to in part 1 on that organic growers farm. But look at sow thistle. We got low calcium and excessive magnesium. Ragweed, dry soils and low potassium. Red root pigweed, low calcium, excess potassium. A great book, and I'm not necessarily suggesting we stop spraying, but weeds are a good signature of what's going on in our soils in the background nutritionally. Weeds Control Without Poisons is a very well-written book. Again, not necessarily condoning organic farming, although it does have a fit in the industry, but it's something well worth reading and understanding on why some of these things are happening in the field. Here's one of the whys that we learned the last couple of years. This field is just outside of Stettler, Alberta. This particular field, they used to seed Roundup Ready canola and spray it 4 or 5 times because the wild oats were so heavy. They applied a couple of ton of a CKD lime on this field year previous to this crop, and the scout on the field only found wild oats in spots, a few spots like this. Over the whole field, they didn't actually spray for wild oats at all. So you're looking at a $15 to $25 an acre savings on a wild oat spray on a field that used to be really bad. Why are the wild oats in this little corner? Well, this is a spot they didn't get to with their spreader. So not only has it improved the crop, and they're using substantially less groceries than they used to, specifically nitrogen, but also it's saving them some money on the weed side of things. And this was pretty big, because this is something that with the lime that we're using in Manitoba, I haven't seen. We've seen other weeds take a back seat to how healthy they are growing. But with that specific CKD product, that's a huge impact on the bottom line of that grower when we don't have those weeds we got to worry about. When you look at managing high magnesium soils, and this is just some work that we've done, we applied 5 ton of wood ash in the fall of 2017, came back with 300 pounds of gypsum in the fall of 18. All of this variable rate applied, so you're getting the averages. Our fall of 17 pH, we were at 7.4. We managed to drop it to a 6.4. We've dropped the magnesium from a 28 to a 21, raised the calcium from a 45 to a 61, and because the CEC is a calculated number, not a measured number, because we've influenced our calculation or our cations, the CEC is a little bit different. But if you watched part 1, and remember I said you could have a high pH with low calcium and high mag, here's an example of that. And by adding the calcium and some gypsum in order to take out that magnesium, we've dropped the pH, dropped the mag, and raised the calcium. We still got a little bit of work here to go, but we're a lot closer to where we were. The field's not near as tight as it used to be. On a wet year last year, didn't hold near as much water as it used to, so some huge benefits there. Didn't have near the drown out potential that it had in previous years. This is a cornfield from Alberta that this side of the field had 1,000 pounds of CKD lime put on, and the grower decided, well, I got a little extra, I'm going to double back and do a couple of passes with another 1,000 pounds. You can see the difference in the corn, and this is only walking. I wish they would have had the line in the picture, but you're not walking that far. We'll call this 20, 30 feet across, and substantial difference in the height of that corn. And then 2 weeks later, they went back to take some more pictures, and you can see the corn is just over this gentleman's head, and the other side where we got the full ton on, or just under a ton, the corn is still substantial. So what's this doing in a short season year? Pushing maturity, also pushing yield, building that photosynthetic factory. It's absolutely huge. Here's a picture of some peas. Unfortunately, I don't have harvest data, so this is our estimation and speculation, so take it for what it's worth. But this here was the untreated area. These plants are on the treated area. We had 10 pods per plant on average versus 15. We had 4 peas per pod versus 5 on the treated with the lime, which equals about 35 bushels an acre. And you can see, just looking over top, the plant that didn't have the calcium versus a plant that had the calcium, quite a bit better at the end of the day. So when you're looking at what lime does and how it affects other crops, there's several crops that we've shown you already with some substantial benefits. Here's a field that we started looking at. We got a pH of 5 to 6.6 with an average of 5.5. What would our composite sample showed us on this field, or would the zone really have picked it out? The magnesium on this field, we're ranging from an 8.5 to a 16 with an average of 12. Calcium on this field from a low of 31 up to 70 with an average of 48. So we're low in mag, low in calcium, and we do have a low pH. When you look at that wasted fertilizer information that we showed you in episode 1 or part 1, we just basically took that and applied those numbers to the maps to come up with the wasted fertilizer map. When we're sitting in a discovery moment with most farms, and we get to the wasted fertilizer map, this is usually when the old guys uncross their arms, put on their reading glasses, and lean forward, because now they're doing math in their head. And this is when the young guys really lean in, because they're starting to understand what's going on, because this puts it to a math number. So on this particular field with that low pH, and this is looking at pH alone, we're wasting between 0 and 53% of our fertilizer dollars, averaging 25%. When we look at a variable rate lime application for this field, it ranged between 0 and $263 an acre, or an average of 134 plus application. That's not in that number. So when we look at the dollars and cents on this field, and that's a little bit of play on the word sense, meaning common sense, if we left this field untreated, we would waste an average of 25% of our fertilizer dollars every year, depending on the year. If $100 an acre is what we're spending on fertilizer, that's $25 an acre every year we're wasting. Plus lost yield potential, somewhere between 20 and 60% of a $600 an acre crop, $500 an acre crop, $1,000 an acre crop. I really don't care. Plug your number in and do the math. But on this example, we're losing between $120 and $360 per acre per year. A lime application cost would cost us $134 plus application to remedy this. What do you think it makes sense to do on this field in order to prevent some of this? Mother Nature will help mitigate some of that on a wet year, but it'll also be a lot more severe on a dry year. By adding the calcium onto this field, we mitigate that impact from the environment. So not that we're controlling the environment, but we're controlling the reaction to that environment. So it allows us to not have those severe losses that we have on extreme situations. So we have a case study field that we've been watching, and we've been recalibrating the SoilOptix spring and fall. We applied some CKD lime in the spring of 2018, and we're following changes in the fall. So we started with that field with an average pH of 5.6. We had the calcium levels at 32%. We're wanting this number closer to 70, so you can see we're quite a ways short. We applied an average of 3,300 pounds of CKD, ranging from 0 to 4,700. And then we did some follow-up samples. So we look at this here. We've raised now the calcium to 48%. These corners were corners the grower was playing with, doing some low-level liming to see if it would do anything, but he never got his rates quite right. But when we put the full-blown budgeted CKD on top of it, these areas now really started to come around. And you can see them stick out like sore thumbs with the SoilOptix map. The pH side of things, we're now up to a 5.9. But interesting enough, and this is something I really want you to understand if you get nothing else from this, this field started with a 6.1 pH in the fall of 2011. This is off of a 5-acre grid sample that was the best we had at the time, put over the topography model. He put on a bunch of gypsum because he had high sodium and heard gypsum was good for sodium. With that addition of gypsum, dropped his pH down to 5.6. With the CKD now, we've brought it back up to a 5.9. His calcium started at a 37, and he put gypsum on, so that's adding calcium, but his calcium dropped to 32. Now by getting the calcium on through the lime, we're back up to a 48. Look at where he started with the magnesium. We're at 16%, pretty darn good for this field. With that addition of the gypsum, dropped it. So not only did he strip calcium out, he stripped magnesium out, and he potentially stripped sodium out, and we'll show you that right away. And now we're back up to 13%. So we've taken that magnesium from a deficient point up to an adequate point again, but we're not quite where we started. But then we look at the Clubroot Risk Map, and we'll talk about this in a future tech talk, but can we change it? We dropped it from a 6.9 to a 5.9. Anything over a 6, it's not a matter of if you're going to get clubroot, it's a matter of when. And we've managed to shift everything lower, so this field is actually going the right way as far as mitigating any clubroot risk. So not only does calcium play a part in managing your weeds, but here's something that shows you on how it's mitigating the potential of clubroot becoming a serious problem in this field. Fortunately, he doesn't have clubroot yet, but we're putting that risk backwards. So another information field that we had in the Bruce area of Alberta, SoilOptix cost $32.50 an acre. The lime applied was $160, with a total cost of $192.50 in order to get that lime put on. Another busy slide, but I hope you understand what we're talking about. In the yield increase, we saw 22 bushels an acre better than the check. The quality of grain, we increased it 1 grade, so we got 30 cents a bushel on 20,000 bushels. So an increased profit of 22 bushels at $7.75 a bushel was the price at the time, got him $170 an acre. 20,000 bushels at 30 cents on 480 acres got him $12.60 an acre. So when you look at that, we're $10 an acre short. We get several years use out of that SoilOptix map, and we can look at variable rating or nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, whatever else it is. This is looking at a single nutrient. Although it's a large, heavy-hitting, expensive nutrient, with just the lime alone, we're within $10 an acre of getting our money back. This looks like a good investment to me. When we look at gypsum on sodium, does it work? Well, it won't work unless you get your calcium levels correct. In these situations, you need a good map, and then you can decide the recipe that's needed to move the field forward. Plus, we may need to look at drainage. In this field, we didn't need to look at drainage, but this is the original grid sample from the fall of 2011, so for the 2012 year, and the SoilOptix from the fall of 2019. You can see the red areas and how much they've shrunk. We just got a few smaller problems. The grid actually didn't pick out some of this area really bad in here, but look at that. Between our 10 to 50% sodium, that was 38% before. Now we've got that down to 5%. We had 9% in our 5 to 7, and now we're down to 28%. And we had 22 in our lowest offering. Now we're down to 30. We made a huge stride forward in reducing the sodium in this field. But this is the same field where we dropped the calcium and dropped the magnesium, but now we're bringing those back around. So you got to be aware of what you're doing. We look at some Manitoba lime results where we have some of our most experience on reduced salt areas that grew no crop before at all. So we've got 100% yield increase in those small pockets of the field. We've seen over the time a 25 to 35% yield increase in wheat and canola. We've seen a 10 to 20% yield increase in potatoes, plus much better quality. If you look at worldwide results in Australia, they're seeing 20 to 30% yield increase with an increase in quality. In the USA, corn yields 15 to 25% yield increase, soybeans 10 to 15, alfalfa, depending how serious that pH is, between 25 and 60%. So if you're in a forage export market, don't you think you'd be wanting to maximize your pH in order to get your calcium levels right so your alfalfa would thrive for you? There's some large companies in Alberta where, you know, all of a sudden have a look more serious at their soils. This would be a huge aspect for the bottom line and the profitability of those companies. So now we're going to get just a little bit geeky before we leave you with session 2 here. This is a picture from Farming Simulator. My son got me onto this, and I actually quite love it. When you look at in their instructions, they say spreading fertilizer twice gives you 25% yield increase each time. You need to spread lime every 3 harvests to give you an average of 15%. That was before they introduced the precision ag side of variable rate or of the Farming Simulator. You look here, you can see the different colors of the background. That's where the pH is, and you can see the darker green where the spreader has gone over and raised the pH. So this particular spot we're putting at 1.17 tons of lime on, or you carry forward, we've raised that now to 1.31, and that'll hold out as the video stops here. But you can see that a video game has understood the value of calcium and adding lime. Plus, they've taken that one step further to understand the value of doing it variable rate. So putting the right rate at the right spot of the field at the right time, using the right product in order to maximize the production potential that we have. If a video game can figure this out, why aren't we doing this in more fields? Kind of makes sense to me. With that, that's the end of our Tech Talk on calcium part 2. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you do have any questions at all, our contact information is there. Reach out to myself or reach out to the folks at SoilOptix, and they can steer you in the right direction. And with that, I'll turn it back to Zach.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Yeah, you're right. If a video game can perform precision ag, I think we can all do better in probably putting some of those practices on our own field. And as an avid farming simulator player, I must say that it's a great to see, certainly in the game. And who knows, maybe we'll get a SoilOptix sensor running on that DLC someday. But no, I really appreciate that full insight on the calcium lime and relating it obviously all back to the SoilOptix technology. Seeing those changes on that one field in Alberta, certainly through, over the last, 8 years, right? Some big changes. And I know that that's one of your research fields. Am I correct on that then, Trevor, as well?
Yes.
Yeah. And are you doing another sampling coming up this year, or what's sort of the plans?
We did one in the fall, but I'll be honest, we just haven't put it together yet to show where the changes are, because what we're wanting to watch is how fast the CKD line is influencing the soil. What is it influencing? How can we predict what's going on? But then also, when is it going to start falling off, where we got to start looking at our future second application.
Yeah. And in terms of the wasted fertilizer, is that a layer that is standard in your package that you're giving to growers then?
Yeah, it is. It actually was a farmer that suggested we do it. He said, I'm a dumb farmer. He says, you're showing me these numbers and stuff. Put it in a chart, then I understand that. And it through that, it did help us basically just take the numbers and put it in a chart, and all the growers have it. And it's actually one of the most impactful graphs that we show the growers, because like I said, that's when guys kind of sit up, because now they're putting math to what they're seeing in their fields.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great tie together, right, of all the information that you're getting, and a way to take it out into the field and make an actionable. So I really appreciate your time today, Trevor. Thank you again for everyone watching part 2 of calcium lime and SoilOptix. This has been another Tech Talk presented by SoilOptix here with Crop Care Consulting and Trevor Thornton. So look out for episode 4 coming out soon.